Well, thanks. First, let me make my selfish confession. I have invited you all into my own selfish pursuit here. Here's the background to the study. I am 59 years old. I am not anticipating retiring soon for two reasons. One, I love what I do, and that's going to play into this story in a minute also. The second reason is I've talked with my financial advisor, and he's let me know that that's not going to happen soon. So it's a good thing that I love what I do. But I'm also fearful of retirement because I love what I do. The idea of just sitting at home watching daytime TV, and that just drives me crazy. I can't imagine. In fact, tomorrow is Thursday, my day off. I usually play golf on my day off. It's going to rain tomorrow. I'm not playing golf. I don't know what I'm going to do for the whole day. So retirement is for me anxiety producing. But there's some people who just thrive in that fourth quarter. And for our purposes, I'm defining that as kind of 65 and over, that kind of retirement window. And so out of my own interest, I've been looking and reading around what is the difference maker? How do some people thrive in the fourth quarter and some people just don't. They get in the easy chair and watch daytime TV and wait till it's all over. 10 years ago or so, I asked Melissa where she would like for us to live in retirement. She said, "I'll get with you later. I don't know where my grandchildren will be living." So that's going to be a motivator, obviously. But at this stage in life, and many of you know that once a month I see a pastoral counselor. And this is part of what I'm talking about, right? What does this look like? And how do I think about this and prepare for this? So it's been out of my own interest that I've been reading some, and I'm here tonight, next Wednesday, and the next Wednesday to inflict this on you, and hope you find something helpful in my journey. Let me share my bibliography next. This doesn't work when I do it on this one. I was using the pointer, but I was pointing on the screen that looks back at me. That's not going to help you at all. The Aging Well book, I want to give you an idea of the books because you might find one or more of these interesting for your own pursuit. But the Aging Well book was written, it's kind of an academic book that records the learnings from a 70-year longitudinal Harvard study about what makes for happy life in the fourth quarter. George Valiant is now retired, the author of that book, and the new person in his position has done a kind of summary in a TED Talk that we'll listen to together next Wednesday. So we'll get a summary of that study next week. Living an Examined Life, Wisdom for the Second Half of the Journey is a more Christian-focused book. But the other two I'm commending are the primary resources for tonight's talk anyway. Aging as a Spiritual Journey is a dated book. I think it's from about 1980, but it's rich and wonderful. I'll be quoting from it a lot tonight. And Falling Upward, the little book by Richard Rohr, it's probably not 90 pages, and every page is worth, one page is what you would pay for that book, worth what you would pay. He's just a remarkable writer. And then the other I'll be getting to in a minute. It's just a resource on some paintings I want to show you. This final resource is online, not a book, but you might want to this down. It's just a recently published 20-page profile of older Americans. And the kind of thing, the 3 bullet points there are just the kinds of things listed in there. How many people, larger percentage of older men than older women are married. 2020, 1 in 10 people live below the poverty line. It's just one statistic over another, 20 pages of that with charts and the like. That's a free resource available online, and it's just interesting, but it had no value to what I'm teaching tonight at all, but I'm just sharing it with you because it was interesting. So our 3 nights together, tonight we're going to be talking about making peace with the past as an important first step in thriving in this fourth quarter experience. Next week, we're going to be focused on what are the people who are thriving, the reports, the statistics, what are they doing that other Americans are not doing? How are they making the most of that season of life? And then our third night together, we're going to talk about legacy and influence beyond our fourth quarter. This is a quote from one of the books that I intend to justify our study. We're departing a little bit. You know, over half of our Wednesday nights are straight up Bible study or study of the miracles or study of the book of James. But every now and then we depart for something else in the life of faith. And as Dr. Hollis says, the issues around aging are essentially and fundamentally issues of faith. This is a religious pursuit. And so to think through the lens of faith about this fourth quarter is an important topic, particularly for the demographic we gather on Wednesday nights. The healthcare industry has dominated the conversation on aging and what makes for a satisfying last 25 years or so. And it deserves attention in the church because most of what the studies are finding make a difference in a satisfying fourth quarter are the things we major in the life of faith. We'll talk more about that. We're going to introduce that tonight, but there'll be more of that next week. So the first little introduction is I want to introduce these 4 paintings from 1840. We're not going to spend much time here, but I want to introduce these just to talk about how universal this theme is. Said this is Civil War days, right? And we're going to the themes that show up in the allegory of these 4 paintings. I think you're going to see are universal even today. I apologize. This is the least clear of the 4 paintings, but the paintings are of childhood, youth, manhood, and old age. I'm going to read from my notes a little bit here to explain the allegory of this first painting. It introduces the important story elements: the voyager, the angel, the river, and the landscape. An infant is safely ensconced in a boat guided by the angel. The landscape is lush. Everything's calm and basking in warm sunshine, reflecting the innocence and joy of childhood. The boat glides out of a dark, craggy cave, which Cole himself described as emblematic of our earthly origin and the mysterious past. The river is smooth and narrow, symbolizing the sheltered experience of childhood. You can see some of the elements better in this one because it's a clearer picture. This is his depiction of youth. the same lush green landscape. But here the view widens, as does the voyager's life experience. Now the youth has firm hold of the tiller, making the way as the angel watches and waves from the shore, allowing him to take control. The subject's youthful enthusiasm and energy is evident in his forward-thrusting pose and billowing clothes. In the distance, an ethereal citadel towers in the sky, a shimmering white beacon that represents the dreams and ambitions of humanity. So in youth, he says, the adolescent has taken control of the steering of this thing and sees all the gleaming possibilities ahead, and it's nothing but smooth water, as in his hubris he takes off for all the possibilities. And then adulthood. Right. Now the grown figure is in the vessel amid the tribulations of adult life. Storm clouds darken the sky, wind whips at his clothing, rain falls in the background. He approaches a treacherous part of the river, which has become rocky and rapid, running through a gorge marked by a gnarled, leafless tree. A distant skyline lightens in the direction, hinting of the hope of better times ahead. But among the dangers, the man has not lost his faith. He's let go of the boat's tiller and is part kneeling, gazing upwards, hands clasped together. The guardian angel continues to watch over from the heavens. That part got a little bit eclipsed when I transposed the picture, but that gleaming white in the heavens is the bottom part of the guardian angel. And then finally, old age. It's an image of death. And let me go back and show you this real quick. You see that this little, on the front of the boat, there's a figure holding an hourglass. In the earlier pictures, in this last picture, the figure and the hourglass are gone. The man's grown old. He's survived the trials of life. The waters have calmed. The river flows into the waters of eternity. The figurehead and hourglass are missing from the battered boat. The withered old voyager has reached the end of earthly time. In the distance, an angel descends from heaven, while the guardian angel hovers close, gesturing toward the other. The man is once again joyous with the knowledge that faith has sustained him through this perilous life to the promise of heaven. The landscape is practically gone. Just a few rough rocks represent the edge of the earthly world. They are by Thomas Cole, C-O-L-E, The Voyage of Life. And obviously there's a lot more written on the allegory than that cursory run through. But tonight our focus, as we think about how to thrive in this last quarter of living, is making peace with the past. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. The psalmist says, I will walk in Yahweh's presence in the land of the living. Walking is future tense. And one of the things that robs a satisfying fourth quarter is an overindulgence in reminiscence. Thinking about what was, what's lost, what isn't going to be again. There is a distinction between the reminiscence that is just a calling up of happy memories that sustains us. In the sermon recently, remember I talked about the repetition of remember, remember, remember. Remembering has a sustaining value to it, but it becomes misused when it becomes a refuge from being engaged in active living. And everybody in this room has a friend or friends who have disengaged from life, and they sit in the lazy boy and do this all day and rot. And I love this verse from Ecclesiastes. Don't say, why were the former days better than these? It is not from wisdom that you ask this. As we'll see next week, for those who embrace the fourth quarter in the right way, it is for most people the best season of their life. And if you have given away staying in the past to all the hurts and shortcomings of and not made the shifts necessary, then clearly it won't be the most satisfying quarter of your life. But for those who make the shifts we're going to be talking about, all of the data of all the research says that people are happiest, people are far happier at 70 than they are at 50, overwhelmingly so. So what is it we need to put away in the past to get to a satisfying present? To continue to visit the childhood hurts and in some cases traumas, that we let go of those in a way that they don't define our future happiness. For many of us who have let our vocation be our identity, we've also got to get rid of unfulfilled aspirations. It is a particular curse of the American that we mold our self-definition around our self-worth, around what we've contributed and what we have achieved. And as most of you know, once you retire, nobody much cares what you achieved anymore. And if you're still living in that world of look what I have done and look what I have accomplished, it's going to make for a pretty sad last 25. We've got to find the grace to give up the unfair mistreatments, the ways we were victimized, the ways we were done wrong, the what if stories. And we've got to find the grace to forgive ourselves of the sins that have kept us back and cheated us of some of our abundance. Richard Rohr points out that Jacob found his birthright through cunning and Esau lost his by failure. But everybody in the Bible who is called is somebody who responded to a deep invitation to something more. So the something more is an invitation for everybody in the retirement era. If we can make the shifts out of the production eras that are necessary to find fulfillment in the retirement days. A reminder that all of the called ones came out of stories of brokenness. I meant to bring a book that I had 2 quotes in, and I left it in my office. My apologies. So now to kind of the meat of it. I just love this image by Richard Rohr. Richard Rohr, he's a Catholic priest, mystic, writer, thinker. And his book, Falling Upward, is probably my favorite piece on aging. But he said that the people who live really satisfying, full, complete lives spend the first half of their life filling up their bucket and the second half of their life emptying it. It's just a wonderful, clean, clear image, isn't it? So that the first half of life, and he talks about this not in 4 stages like the paintings, but first half of life, second half of life issues. He says the first half of life, we are gaining education. We are earning money and saving money and buying houses and accumulating things We are filling our bucket with knowledge and experience and accumulations of money and things. And the most miserable people are the ones who in the second half of life haven't learned how to shut that down and spend the second half of life still accumulating. But he said, if you can learn the grace of filling your bucket in the first half of life and emptying it in the second, you can live in a fulfilled way. So rather than gaining more degrees in education, we become mentors, right? We become teachers of the wisdoms. Rather than getting more money to put in an account, we find the ways we want to invest and give back, right? That we should aspire to end this journey with an empty bucket because we've got enough overflow to give away. The Young quote obviously has become an important line for his thinking there. What's a normal goal for a young person becomes a neurotic hindrance in old age. He says this is only possible, I'll let you read that for yourself, but it's only possible for folks who are aware of their own brokenness and aware of where the bottom is. Those who have gone down are the only ones who can understand what up looks like. And so it is a spiritual practice and a spiritual emptying to have the grace to stop accumulating and start giving. So I'm including a couple of other quotes just to illustrate the universality of this in the literature. So they name it different things, but in nearly everything I read, there was some place that they spoke to this shift that has to happen in our mindset, in the shift to this fourth quarter. And if it doesn't, you don't live in a satisfying way. And the Richard Rohr image is you fill your bucket, you empty your bucket. James Hollis, the author of one of the other books that I mentioned, says it's a shift in the center of gravity from the other out there to the other within. In other words, we're trying in the first half of life to conquer the otherness in our world around us. And in the second half of life, if we do it right, we are trying to conquer the otherness that lies in here that we hadn't found and figured out yet and explored. Because most of us haven't explored our inner self that much because we were out there conquering the world the whole time. And that's the shift that's got to happen. This is another one of the books I mentioned at the beginning, and another way of saying virtually the same thing. One of the tasks with the highest potential for well-being concerns the reversal of the kill and survive attitude to the die and become. I love the symmetry of that language and the poetry of it. So we spend the first half of life killing and surviving, conquering, accumulating. And if we do it right, we spend the second part dying to all of that and trying to become the person God's called us to be. So, different ways of saying the same thing. In our younger life, we spend our time achieving and winning and trying to control our outer world, trying to gather, or to use the phrases of our teachers, fill our bucket, conquer what is out there, and kill and survive. And if we do it right, we make the shift from achieving to being, from winning to loving, from controlling our outer world to controlling our inner world, the shift from gathering to giving, filling the bucket to emptying, out there to within, and dying and becoming. So, let me stop before I enter into the next, because I want us to talk a little bit about this shift from outside to inside, this developing the inner world image. But before I go there, any questions, comments, things you want to throw? Mm-hmm.
Bucket and emptying the bucket, he'd always say when he kicks the bucket.
I guess that happens right at the end of emptying it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He said, when I kick the bucket, and I always thought of that, but my dad, instead of saying dying, he said, when I kick the bucket,
Well, that's worth aspiring to, kicking it after it's empty, right?
This question may be irrelevant, but did you plan this series to start on the night of my 77th birthday?
We had talked before.
I really had no idea it was your 77th birthday. In fact, I thought you were a good bit older than that. No, I did know that I would have a sympathetic audience to the topic, since most of us are in or about to be in fourth quarter living. So. Yeah, what did I read about that? I read an article today on this topic. Jeremy was talking about people have a bucket list, and I'll need to bring the quote next week. But it was a kind of an upside down way of thinking about the bucket list, which was how to start thinking not of the things you want to do before you die, but how to start thinking about the stuff you want to stop doing before you die, which might be as important a pursuit as the bucket list, right? Let's talk about the developing the inner world for a minute. One of the almost certain characteristics of aging is more solitude. But we need to distinguish solitude from loneliness and isolation. Solitude is a part of the gift that is ours to develop this inner capacity. But loneliness and isolation are not just dangerous, but the CDC has just recognized it as, I'm looking at you, Amanda, you all have just recognized loneliness as a serious health risk in America. I've got CDC language here that is quite recent, right? A month old, 2 months old. Social isolation significantly increased a person's risk of premature death from all causes, a risk that might rival those of smoking, obesity, and physical inactivity. Loneliness is almost an American epidemic. And I'm going to say more about this next week, but I need to applaud this room tonight, because the fact that you are in here on Wednesday night laughing and eating around the table means that you are doing everything you can to not fall prey to this epidemic. But time alone does not necessarily equate to loneliness, right? There is a gifted part of time alone, which is solitude. This should be the verse to memorize for this series, so that we do not lose heart. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. Those who make the shift to a thriving fourth quarter have developed the capacities for renewing their inner self daily as the outer capacities start to wane in the same time. So one of the tricks to thriving is to convert the times of solitude into opportunities for prayer and study, so that the solitude doesn't become another occasion for going back into the playground for destructive reminiscing. Some people sit in the solitude of aging and go back through the what ifs and the hurts and the if onlys, and it is a spiral down into a deep and dark hole. Others take the gift of solitude in the fourth quarter as an occasion to pray and read and think and grow and expand and dive deeper into the mystery of who we are and how wonderfully we are made. That's the same thing. I think this is an interesting quote. The greatest tragedy for a religious person isn't being a sinner, but the embracing of stagnation, the refusal to grow. Once again, I will kind of invite you to imagine two different 70-year-old friends you have, and one who is the life of every party, and the one who is already in bed tonight, having done all they could do to deal with the day. Right? The difference for most is that those who are living out a satisfying life continue to grow, continue to have hobbies, continue to make friends, will not let stagnation win. They are continuing on this process of growth, and some have just rolled over and quit. Let me go back and tell a story I shouldn't tell. But my parents grew up in Greenwood, South Carolina. You know that, in the mill villages of Greenwood. And the mills were such a hard work environment that most people, retired at 65 and died at 67. They had all kind of lint in their lungs and all that kind of stuff. So nobody thought about retirement. They didn't think about that was a whole new chapter of possibility. You just worked till you got within a couple of years of not being able to work, and then you died. And in that tradition, my grandmother and her husband retired at 65, bought new Lazy Boys, carton of cigarettes, turned on the TV, and waited a few years and died, because that's what they thought you did. And you have people you love who've made the same choices. Stagnation is the curse that we're trying to stay away from. One of the ways Henry Nouwen talks about how to live into this shift that we're talking about is to be stripped of the illusion of ownership, that's a part of what goes with this move from the first half to the second half of living. The recognition that we're all stewards, nobody's an owner. We hold our things more lightly in the fourth quarter if we recognize that none of it's really ours. We're getting to use it for a while, and then somebody else will get to use it. And so once we change our idea, our mindset around things, property, accumulations, money, we start to see that as a gift to be shared, a way of blessing other people, rather than just an ongoing accumulation. And then he said the other key to making this shift is to enter into compassion in different ways, to see the beauty in the midst of misery because there is pain in the fourth quarter, but to be able to enter into other people's pain in a way that you can sit with them, be a friend with them, and be moved by the hardships of other people. The folks who learn these two important qualities also have a better chance of thriving in this last season. That is just a quote for your entertainment and amusement. But I was struck by the language of a soul clapping its hands. You all know that I'm a language nerd, but I love the image of a soul clap. And I would invite your prayerful attention to this psalm and what it might mean for thriving in this season of life. Psalm 90, verse 12. So teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. There's a book that's just recently come out that I have not yet read called 4,000 Weeks. And the premise of that is the average lifespan. It seems like it would be more, doesn't it, than 4,000 weeks. And the book is a challenge about if you've only got 4,000 weeks, how are you going to spend that, right? How would you make the most? And if you're in the fourth quarter, you've got fewer than 1,000 weeks. What are you going to do? How are you going to spend it? I think this psalm is an instruction to that thought. So let me summarize tonight's and then entertain your questions and comments after. The first step to our thriving in this stage of life is to say goodbye to the losses and hurts and disappointments and betrayals of our past. To the extent we are carrying that stuff around still, we are cheating ourselves a great deal of the abundance that's available to us. It includes this monumental internal shift that we've been talking about all night, away from the youthful pursuits, from filling our buckets to emptying our buckets, from kill and survive to die and become. And I think this internal shift is probably the hardest for Americans, and particularly in our part of the American culture, this high-producing, fast city kind of life, where our affirmations are around our accumulations and our successes. Winning includes befriending solitude and fighting loneliness. And it's making the shift from conquering the outer world to turning our attention on how we build, conquer, and understand the inner person that is still trying to get out of a prison and live fully into this fourth quarter. And this is the Corinthians, Corinthians. I noted it the first time he used it. That our outer self is wasting away. Everybody in the room's lost a little bit on their fastball. We are not as strong and fast and quick and able as we used to be. But we still, in this stage of life, have the capacities for being renewed in the inner life in ways that bring satisfaction and joy. So, feedback, questions, conversation. Let me just say that you and Paul have skewed everything in my presentation. So like if we use you to do the calculations on the fourth quarter, most of us don't get to play. No, in fact, I'm going to say more about this next week too, but some of y'all might not be here, so I'm going to say it twice. Part of the reason you are our hero is that you do this stuff right, and that you are here every Wednesday night investing in relationship, volunteering in respite care, right? Like you are modeling for us what all of this data is talking about. And so I was going to ask your permission, but now I'm just picking on you. But really, you and Paul represent the best of what all this data is talking about. How do you just start thinking about giving, pushing, learning, staying active, serving, reading in a way that stagnation just has got no chance and loneliness has got no chance? Because if you started feeling lonely and not solitude, you'd get in your convertible and go somewhere else.
Have known that Barbara is my, ideal. I mean, she's who I look at. She's my role model. I look at her and I think, I want to be like Barbara. That's it. And the sad thing is that last time she went to walk up to the pulpit, and I thought, oh, Barbara, don't take the steps up, please. Not so much I was worried about her, but it meant that I had to follow her. Next time I went up, I was going to have to walk up the steps, and I've told her this, So she went up the steps, and I go, please make her take the side way down, and she came right down the stairs, So I said, Barbara, I'm mad with you because now I've got to do this. Except I have sent stuff know that I can't see, to take those 3 steps down, so I have to go around the other way. But she is, and she does, and I'm sitting here thinking, she did everything the way you want to do it. Now genes are something, some of us, but I'm telling you, I have taught in retirement homes for 20 years now. And I tell you, I know, I won't bore it here, but anyhow, there is a pattern. There is a pattern that you see in Barbara, you see in Paul, and I see in the people that do their best. They've made their choice to go. Maybe they didn't want to go that soon or whatever, but they made the choice because they would say to me, I wanted to make it while I still made it myself, while I still had, everything about me, and it was my choice. And I made it. I made that decision. So,
well, I'm borrowing a little bit against next week, but I want to say again, everybody in this room is doing this part right because you're in this room, right? Most of you have peers, age peers, who just wouldn't go to the trouble, right? But the fact that you all want to learn more about the life of faith, want to sit at a table in relationship, want to be praying for other people, volunteering, giving, producing, y'all are the ones doing it right. So I'll make this the benediction. A gift you can give to some of your friends is to invite them to Wednesday night, to push them out of their stagnation, to be a part of community with us. Ben?
Yes, we're talking about Paul Wright. He called me today to wish me a happy birthday. That's the kind of guy he is.
That
Analogy of this last quarter we're talking about, I think Pauline and I have adopted a philosophy of keep trying to make first downs.
good. Well, somebody Glenn, was it you who said to me, "You're talking about the fourth quarter, and I'm at the 2-minute warning." Somebody in this crowd said that to me recently. All right, well, do a friend a favor, bring them next Wednesday so they won't be isolated or stagnated, and I'll see you Sunday morning. Go in peace.